Susan. My name is Susan, and I'm so thrilled you're here with me today. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're new here, welcome. I am so impressed because it's only been a month since I last recorded. This is part 2 of all the animals that I have been making from Mouche Friends by Cynthia Vallée. Since we last spoke, I have made a couple more creatures, and I wanted to take the opportunity to showcase 2 new characters that I finished, 1 in progress, and to also share some lessons learned, tips, and tricks. So maybe we'll start with what I finished recently. So this is a little donkey. I think he is absolutely adorable. My favorite part is this dungaree that I made. He's got pocket right here. You can actually stick his hand into the front pockets. He's got pockets in the back, and he's got a cute little drawstring backpack. The character itself was very similar to all the other characters, but the outfit and the backpack, especially the outfit, took a long time. I had to make it twice to figure it out, but it's totally worth the second attempt. But I would say my favorite part was the drawstring backpack. Cynthia had a very unique way and a very easy way to make that pattern. I was really impressed. I think that's the case with her patterns in general, is that even with the smallest object, there's something new that you will learn from her pattern. Normally, I would expect something really small to just, normal knitting, but I feel like with every character I make, there's always something new that I learned from her book. And obviously he's got an adorable little beanie. And then the other character that I made is, I think she's called Audiio. Is that her name? The sheep? Oh my God, her vest took me such a long time to make. Those loops, wow. I was not expecting the amount of time it took me to make her vest. I think it was 3 times as long to make the vest than to make the sheep itself. She's adorable. She's got a little bag. I love her. Absolutely adorable. And with all of Cynthia's patterns, I feel like I want to make every little piece of accessory she designed, because it really pulls the character together really nicely. So her patterns are just very thoughtful, adorable, and addicting. I have started on another character, and it's the bison. Look at that. Mr. Bison. His hair was unlike anything I've ever done. You are basically knitting and crocheting at the same time. So as you knit a stitch, instead of dropping the stitch, you bust out your crochet hook and you make several chains, put it back on your knitting needle, and you knit that stitch off. And that's what creates that crazy head of bison. So I'll be honest, I'm not sure I love this bison. I think my favorite animal so far is the tutu bear and these 2. I think the sheep may be my favorite. They're just adorable. I really wanted to make the bison because of his crazy head. I wanted to know what was going on in Cynthia's head when she designed the pattern and how she achieved the look. So it was almost deciphering a puzzle to understand her thinking process. And now that I have figured out how she did the head, I don't have the motivation to finish the rest of his body, and I want to move on to the raccoon. But I keep telling myself, just finish it. So I finished the body, and I'm about to split for his 2 arms. And I think once I finish his arms, his body, and his legs, everything should just come together pretty easily. And generally, I really like making their outfits. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I can just get this one done. Especially if he's halfway done, I should just finish him, right? So a couple of things I've learned along the way, given the few animals that I have made, and I'm sure I've come across many different YouTube channels where people have made almost every single character from the book. So what I'm sharing is really just based on my experience working with these characters. I'm hoping that you will find them valuable. So the first tip that I have is related to the bear. I wanted to share this before I forget. Now, for the bear pattern, you have an option to make the muzzle in the same color as the bear itself. If you're considering making the tutu bear, my recommendation is to make the bear in 2 colors, like what you see here. I have made a couple of bears in 1 color, the muzzle and the body and everything, and it kind of looked like a rat. So, so to achieve the look of a bear that you're hoping for, you should make them in 2 colors. So that's my number 1 tip. Let's set that down. Number 2, safety eyes. So I would recommend you play with sizes, right? So Cynthia will tell you what size to use, and it's generally 4 or 5 mm. I think that's the unit. But I think you should play with it and see what looks good. I generally use 5, and that seems to work really well. And that's what I use on most of my animals. And when you insert the safety eye into the body, the head itself, Cynthia recommends that you cut up a piece of felt and you have the eye, the knitting, the felt, and the backing, right? So you got 4 sections. Again, you've got the eye, you've got the piece that you knitted, you've got the felt, and the backing of the safety eye. And when you attach it this way with the felt behind your knitted piece, it somehow gives this face and the eye better shaping, I guess, and your eye does not dissolve and disappear, not dissolve. It does not disappear into your knitting. I've played with both, you know, without felt and with felt, and I generally like the look I achieve with felt. So what I do is I don't like interruptions as I'm knitting. I don't like getting up and having to go get something and come back down, get back up again, because you know, we have everything on our laps, we have everything on our table. The last thing I want to do is to get up. So what I do is I have just cut up a bunch of little pieces of felt. I don't have one here, otherwise I'll show you. I basically cut up small pieces of felt, and I took a scissor and just snipped a little bit in the center, enough for me to push a safety eye through. And I have all these little pieces just in one of the containers where I keep all my knitting notions. So I always have it with me and I don't have to get back up. I mean, you don't use it very often because it's 2 small pieces per animal and you're not whipping up these animals every 5 minutes, right? So you only need a few pieces. Keep them in a notion pouch somewhere. It will come in handy. And a comment on stuffing in general, I just use basic polyester stuffing that I came across, you know, Julian's or Michael's. Julian's no longer around, but just these, you know, big box craft store, they have these polyfill. I just use those. But I've also seen people using wool. I think it's the type of wool you use to spin yarn. They seem extremely soft, and the animals, I'm sure, will probably feel super soft and luxurious. I don't have those, and the only option is to purchase them from Etsy, and I just, so many sellers, I didn't know which one to use, and polyfill seems to work fine. So for now, I'm using those. So I thought I would share my thoughts on stuffing. In terms of my thoughts on sheep, on yarn in general, the wool that I use is plain wool without any sort of texture is not exciting. The animal does not really come alive, in my opinion. So I recommend using rustic wool. Like this is, I've used linen quill from Pearl Soho several times. That's what this crazy bison is made with. I have also used knit pig stroll. That's also a good one. And just any sort of fuzzy yarn, rustic yarn, not too fuzzy, generally works pretty well, I feel like, with these characters, especially with the sheep, for example. I have so many skein fingering weight white yarn, and originally I grabbed like a random, I don't even know what it is because I'm mostly using scrap yarn, leftover yarn. I don't have the label, but as soon as I started knitting it, the piece just felt very flat, I think because it didn't have that texture. So I stopped and I pull out another skein leftover ball of yarn that was a little bit more woolly, rustic, and I think it achieved a much better result. So I recommend just taking a look, and when in doubt, go with something that's rustic and has some sort of texture to it. Your character will come out cuter. For the outfit itself, I think the yarn doesn't quite matter. I think with this one, for his outfit, I actually just used a skein of fingering weight yarn that I think it was Lion's brand that I got from Michael's, because I really wanted this color. And this was the only skein that I had in this color. And it worked out fine, because I feel like, with the outfit, it doesn't need to be realistic, right? I'm not like he's realistic, but I think with outfits, it's a different story from the character itself. In terms of needles that I used, I generally use US 0 for the body and size 1 for the character's outfits. I think I've mentioned in a previous episode, my friend uses size 2 for the outfit and size 1 for the body, and her characters came out almost the same size as mine. So if you're really struggling with size 0, just go with size 1. Don't let it stop you, or maybe even 2. Give it a try and see how it looks. Don't let the sizing intimidate you. Now, in terms of what kind of needles to use, I've used a combination of double pointed needle, as well as circular. I think in general, I like magic loop circular, but when necessary, I think double point works just fine. I would recommend using metal double point needle and not bamboo. I have snapped so many bamboo double pointed needles making these characters. I think it's because sometimes the circumference is quite small. You really kind of go around it. And I think the motion of doing that, I must have snapped at least like 3 size 0 needle, right? Because they're tiny. So I think metal works better. I actually have 2 sets. I have multiple sets. I have bamboo and metal. And usually if I'm picking up stitches, for example, I'm picking up stitches to make his tail, for example, those stitches may slip off easily because you only have 3 stitches on each needle and you're doing a lot of maneuvering, and the stitches may fall off, right? So when I'm first picking up stitches, I like to use bamboo double pointed needle because they're sticky. And then once I've established a couple rows, I switch to metal because I just enjoy working with metal needle. I think it knits up faster, and I know I won't snap it in half. So I recommend just having a couple that you could play with. And if you're only gonna buy one, maybe go with metal. And sometimes you put stitches on hold, and this is where the extra double pointed needle comes in handy. When Cynthia tells you to put stitches on hold for these patterns, I do not recommend you put them on hold on a piece of yarn because the stitches are so small, the yarn is kind of sticky. It's really hard to transfer these live stitches from your yarn that you've used as a holder. I just recommend you put them on double pointed needle, knit the rest of your body with circular, or the section you're working with, make that with your circular knitting needle, and keep the parts that you're holding on double pointed needle, several, right? So you can move the piece easier. So for example, I am about to make the arm, one of the arms of the bison. So the rest of the stitches will be on hold, and they will be on hold using double pointed needle, and I will use my circular to work that small section of his arm. So that's what I recommend. In terms of embroidery, so you see his nose. I recommend you use embroidery threads and not yarn, right? Because this way you can achieve it's like finer detail. I think it's better to use embroidery threads and not yarn. One other suggestion that I have is my friend Marissa. She is brilliant. I learned so much from her. She had her book taken to one of those shops like FedEx, Staples, and changed them to binding. And so I finally decided to copy her because I didn't want to go through the trouble of bringing a book over and then having to go back and pick it up. But having to deal with a book that does not lay flat and having everything on my lap and on the table, it was just driving me crazy. So I finally went in, and they were not busy, and so they were able to get this done for me in 5 minutes. And this is probably one of the best invention there ever is. I mean, why do you not do it in a spiral to begin with? In personal opinion, I think all books should be on spiral. Now I am sure there's a reason for it, because you probably damage it more. I don't know, but there's probably a reason for it. But for us knitters, where there's so many rows and direction, and every row is different, it's easier to have it lay flat. And so I recommend you give that a consideration if you become a serious Mouche and Friend knitter. I also want to mention that I originally had purchased kid silk mohair yarn in white to make my sheep, but for some reason, please tell me in the comment box if you have experience with this, or maybe it's just a one-off. My kid silk mohair yarn was so stinky. It had such a bad smell, I could not work with it. I really wanted to create a very fuzzy look with my sheep, because it's a sheep, right? It's supposed to be fuzzy. But the yarn was so stinky, I could not work with it. And it's not a sheepy smell. It's like a plastic smell. It was very unpleasant. And then I realized that I usually work with Isager mohair. I've not worked with kid silk in the past. So I was very disappointed. And if you've used that, please let me know. Am I the only one, or did something happen to that skein of yarn? I was not thrilled. I purposely went out of my way to get that skein of yarn. I was so excited to bring it home. I couldn't stand the smell. It was awful. Oh, another suggestion is, when you're making these animals and you're done with the body, I recommend you stuff the body entirely. Just finish the body, right? Wash, block the body, stuff it, close it off, because it's really important that you're able to measure the fit of the outfit that you're working on. When I first finished the donkey, I just left his body kind of empty except for the head. I think I mentioned in previous episode, I always stuff the head, just like I am with the bison. I think it's easier to stuff the head first, because the way Cynthia pattern works is you start from usually the nose, you work all the way down, and the opening is like right here, and then you stuff it and you seal it and you close it off. And so the head, especially the nose, is so hard to reach up. So I usually stuff the head, and then I block the body, wait for it to fully dry, stuff it, and then I close it off. But when I was making this one, I was too lazy to block it. So because I was so excited to make the outfit, I just left him unblocked, not stuffed, and I immediately rushed off to make his outfit. But then I couldn't tell how far and how long the strap should be, because I didn't have a sample to try on his outfit. So then I had to wash him and block him and wait for him to dry and then try on his outfit. So I've learned just finish your animal, make your outfit. That way you have a model to try on the clothes that you're making it for. Oh, one more comment about the dungaree for the donkey. For the pocket, if you end up making this pattern, when you are picking up stitches for the pocket, Cynthia did not explicitly state you should pick up every other row. I think she said something about picking up, and I just assume you're picking up every row. So maybe my understanding was incorrect, but I assume you're picking up every row. But the pocket here was shorter than where it needs to be here, and so the stitches just didn't add up. And so what it ended up doing the second time around, I just ripped up the pocket and did it again. I picked up every other row so that it's long enough for me to combine stitches here. I know it's very hard to visualize this without the pattern in front of you, but if you do make that pattern, just remember when picking up for the pocket on the vertical side, pick up every other row, and so your pocket would be as long as the dungaree itself. So then the dungaree and the pocket could be knit together. Anyways, sorry, it's kind of confusing, but hopefully that helps, because I was very surprised. I was not sure what was going on, but it was an easy fix. One last comment is when I was making the sheep, what I have noticed is Cynthia's patterns generally does not have any mistake, and that's very impressive for the number of patterns and accessories she has in this book. I did notice one tiny mistake with this pattern, and it's the total stitch count. So when you're, and it only happened one time. Let me see if I wrote it down. I can share with you. It's basically when you finish a step, she usually would tell you how many stitches you should have, but the numbers were off. But the direction is still right. You know, just don't pay attention to the total number that you should expect. Where is that? I made a note. Yeah, it was basically the total number of stitches that you should expect. This is the number they usually put in parentheses. Oh, I found it. Okay, so this is the section where you're knitting the body. It's on page 112, and it's after rounds 13 to 32. She said you should have 28 stitches, but you should have 30. I think, hopefully I got this right. But other than that, what I have made so far, I didn't notice any other mistakes. And I don't even know if I would call this a mistake, because I think it's fine. So yeah, so hopefully I will find some time this weekend to finish off this lovely, crazy bison. I think once I'm not quite sure what I want to make for his outfit. Let me show you what his outfit looks like. I'm kind of wondering if I should make another dungaree, because I love it so much. This is his outfit. It's quite cute. He's got a cute little camera there. So I don't know. And I don't know if he's a boy or a girl, so we will figure that out. But I hope you're doing well. Thank you for stopping by. If you're also knitting, can you tell me what you're working on in the comment section below? Once again, thank you so much for stopping by, and I will show a couple of clips of, little here and there when I'm making these animals. I try to take some photos and videos to share with you. So I hope you find these tips helpful, and happy knitting. Bye.